Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's topic is going to be on FTX, Sequoia Capital, and their Charlie Manson look-alike scapegoat, Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm going to talk a little bit about Caroline Ellison, another innocent Susan Atkins look-alike scapegoat from Stanford University. That's right, I said Stanford University, where Caroline Ellison graduated with an undergraduate degree in mathematics. Thank you, Stanford. Leland Stanford Junior University. Thank you so much for the CIA operatives that come out of your school and go on to commit felony crimes. Thank you so much. Now, I want to make this real clear for everybody that lost money on the FTX crypto CIA PSYOPS operation that Sam Bankman-Fried and Caroline Ellison should be immediately released. They are innocent of any felonious activities, and cut them loose. Now, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to end up like Charles Scott Manson and Susan Atkins, where they spent the rest of their lives in prison, in a concrete prison cell with flat screen televisions and headsets. That's where they're going to end up, I'm afraid. I fear for their lives. Perhaps they will be deleted in a Jeffrey Epstein, Tom Hanks, Anne Heche sort of way, right? Because we don't know where Tom Hanks is. He's not doing any current event interviews. You know, he was lucky to recover from the common cold in Australia, and common cold known as the deadly coronavirus, where he didn't die, but he disappeared, right? He's been gone for 2.5 years. Hey, Tom, if you can see me, give me a call, right? Don't have your body double call me. You call me. And I know you went to Skyline High School, so we're going to do a little test to see if you know the names of some teachers who I knew the names of, and students who were in your grade that I personally knew, one of whom I got my paper out from. So if you don't know the name of the person who had my paper out, you're not Tom Hanks, because he was very well known in performing arts. So if you don't know him, I know you're not real. Okay. Who are the culprits, right? Well, it's who the media isn't talking about, right? So the culprits would be the clandestine services and their private banker sponsors. Well, that's real easy. That's Sequoia Capital, located at 2800 Sand Hill Road, Menlo Park, across the street from Stanford University, on the north side of the campus. And that would be Doug Leone. You know, Doug Leone's from the Bronx. Well, he's from Mount Vernon, New York, which is the Bronx. He's right on the cusp of the Bronx, near New Rochelle, right? That's where Jerome Kohlberg is from, the Jewish fellow that founded KKR, private bank, clandestine services bank, founded in 1976. Also headquartered at 2800 Sand Hill Road. Do you think, kind of, sort of, that Don Valentine, who's from the Bronx, who also attended Jesuit University, Fordham University, where Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo both went, before Chris Cuomo went off to clandestine services, Yale University. If anyone actually listens to Chris Cuomo, his stupid show, I would think nobody listens to it, but they probably have some fake ratings for him. Anyway, my point is that Jerome Kohlberg came from New Rochelle, New York. Don Valentine, who founded Sequoia Capital in 1972, 4 years before KKR, aka Bear Stearns' spinoff. Bear Stearns is where Jerome Kohlberg was a principal, and then he went out to follow Don Valentine from the Bronx out to Menlo Park, Stanford University, Sand Hill Road. So Sequoia Capital was set up in 1972, followed by Jerome Kohlberg in 1976, KKR, and there they are at the top of the hill near Highway 280. They're at the top. El Camino Real Boulevard is at the bottom of Sand Hill Road, in case you are curious. And at the top is Jerome Kohlberg and Don Valentine, known as the godfather of Silicon Valley. Just so you know, Silicon Valley is a military industrial complex. That's home to National Semiconductor, that's home to Hewlett-Packard, that's home to Cypress Semiconductor, T.J. Rogers, who also went to Stanford University, and Scott McKeely, who went to Stanford University and founded, along with some partners, Sun Microsystems, which was financed by Sequoia Capital, the people that brought you FTX. The people that brought you FTX, which is Don Valentine, and then later in 1988, Doug Leone joined. Doug Leone from Mount Vernon, the Bronx, New York. And he became eventually the global managing partner of Sequoia Capital. And they brought you FTX. And Don Valentine was alive when that happened. That was 2019. That was the year that Erin Valenti went missing at 2500 Sand Hill Road, walking distance to Doug Leone's office. You have a 33-year-old woman who has a meeting with a KKR managing director. And then she goes missing in the same parking lot that Doug Leone parks his fancy car. And then she ends up 5 days later dead as a doornail in the back of her upscale Nissan Murano SUV in San Jose, in Almaden Valley, which is approximately 16 miles south of Doug Leone's office. You know, I think Doug Leone should be called in for questioning on that murder. I mean, I'm going to call it a murder. The coroner of Santa Clara calls it a manic episode. But you know what? I'm kind of on the verge of a manic episode myself. But I don't mean the kind where I end up dead in the back of the car, if you can follow my meaning. All right, so anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that Sam Bankman-Fried wasn't even born. He wasn't even born when Don Valentine is working with Apple Computer and a college dropout by the name of Steve Jobs, who never attended a legitimate four-year university. I mean, he did audit some classes at Lewis and Clark University up in Portland, Oregon, but he audited the class, meaning he didn't take a letter grade, and he dropped out. And then he attended De Anza Junior College in Campbell, next to San Jose, and he worked at Atari on children's video games. And then he becomes the founder on paper for Apple Computer with no formal education. He did not attend Stanford. It's one of the most famous people in Silicon Valley, and he didn't attend Stanford University. So, and Elizabeth Holmes, she attended Stanford University as a freshman and sophomore, but she dropped out to become a billionaire on her own before she crashed and burned with an FTX-style scandal. We don't know where she got her money. There's a really good 95% chance she got it from Doug Leone and Don Valentine at Sequoia Capital, because they were both alive when the Elizabeth Holmes fraudulent scheme was hatched, and she was attending Stanford University when they were both working on Sand Hill Road at 2800 Sand Hill Road. You know, where Erin Valenti went missing, a 33-year-old woman who was murdered. Anyway, I bring this up because the media is going to be all over the applied linguistics, liar, liar, pants on fire, Noam Chomsky style, bald-faced lies about what really happened with FTX. And if you want to know what happened to FTX, it was a 3-year CIA PSYOPS, okay? From cradle to grave, it was fewer than 36 months. And for all you people that believed in cryptocurrency, you know, shame on you. You realize that anything that's going to run on the internet, including this show, including this podcast, will be deleted or controlled whenever the invisible hand decides. So if I should go missing or you can't locate my videos, you know what to do, right? I've made it crystal clear, I hope, that I'm anti-mesh, I'm anti-5G, I'm anti-surveillance, I'm pro-liberty, I'm pro-privacy. So if you want to tribute my disappearance, be sure to go dismantle every bit and piece of the mesh, which they've spent decades building. It's going to take decades to deconstruct it. So get busy and go out there and disassemble all the things that you saw in the neighborhood when you had your Verizon, your AT&T vendors in your neighborhood setting up the smart grid, smart mesh. Whatever they did, do the reverse. Undo it, and then you'll get your privacy back. Now, your digital currency and your cryptocurrency won't work, and you won't be able to do banking on the internet. But you know what? You can go find a banker. If you need cash money, go find a banker. They're easy to find. I know where they live, and you do too. They got the big hedgerows with the no sidewalks. And if the people who you visit aren't bankers, I'll bet they know where the bankers live, because you have to pay your Japanese gardener and your butler and your chauffeur, and you need a banker to do that. So anybody that's living in a 10,000 to 16,000 square foot estate property with a gardener knows a banker. I guarantee it. There's no exceptions. There is no exception. So if you stumble across someone who's in the aerospace technology business or with Army intelligence, just round them up, because they know the people who we're focused on regarding our money system, which they want to use as a techno-enslavement system. That's what central bank digital currency is. And cryptocurrency, mismanaged and outside of the control of banks, will not be permitted. So the Sam Bankman story is going to be the story of, we need more regulations and the banks should manage cryptocurrency. But here's the joke of that. Banks are not regulated themselves. Banks have no adult supervision at all. It's a bunch of perverted men in a conference room in a private setting committing felonious acts upon the public, authorizing and sponsoring clandestine service social engineering events, from the Sharon Tate murder to the Dr. Victor Ota family massacre, to the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, to 9/11 World Trade Center, destruction of 3 towers, to murdering people at Pearl Harbor, innocent people sleeping in their bunks, to the assassination of George Moscone in San Francisco, to the promotion of Diane Goldman Feinstein for decades, when she is a completely worthless Stanford University alumnus and should be the heck out of politics. She should never have been the mayor of San Francisco, let alone the senator from Alta California. And it's goodbye to Gavin Newsom and goodbye to Ron DeSantis, Navy intelligence, CIA operative, honeypot operation running a Haight-Ashbury project in the state of Florida. Right. He works for the CIA. And so does Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom didn't go to Guantanamo Bay and torment prisoners by pretending to represent their Geneva Convention so-called rights, which none of them have. All right, so Ron DeSantis did. In other words, he can lie to people to their face. You want him to be your governor? You want him to be your president? Don't you like Joe Biden? I mean, he's in a senile dementia state, and we have a cackling chaos cacophony of Vice President Kamala Harris, and nobody understands what word salad comes out of her pie hole. Isn't that preferable to a Ron DeSantis who will just look right at your camera and make claims that he can't back up because he has no authority? He is a puppet. He is a puppet, just like the Wizard of Oz. Pull back the curtain on Ron DeSantis. Yale University, Harvard Law, Office of Judge Advocacy, prisoner dilemma game at Guantanamo Bay, CIA, Cuba. The whole island is CIA. The entire island is CIA. Fidel Castro worked for the CIA, okay? Cuba was defeated in 1898. Remember the Maine and to hell with Spain? That created Cuba for the CIA, OSS, Navy intelligence, whatever names you want to call it, Mossad, KGB. They all go to the same parties together. Anyway, my point about Sam Bankman is it's already happened, the volleys of mendacities. I'm going to focus on one in particular because it reminds me of the Charlie Manson murder trial. Richie Torres is on the record. Richie John Torres, an openly gay congressman from the Bronx, New York. Of course, because that's where Don Valentine's from, and that's where Doug Leone is from. And they founded Sequoia Capital, that brought you FTX. So of all the Congress people, the 430 Congress people, who are you going to pick to make up lies about Sam Bankman-Fried? You're going to pick the one from Sequoia Capital's Bronx origination, right? You're going to get Richie Torres. And listen to the poppycock that Richie Torres said today. I mean, it's really quite stunning how far these people will lie. You know, Richie Torres is a snake. He wants to go to a cashless society in New York City. He doesn't want you to carry cash. Only 6 or 7% of people pay their bills with cash. And that's where the cryptocurrency was a threat. It was a threat because it was going against the digital currency that the banks want to have, that Richie Torres, openly gay man, wants you to have. He's trying to be a virtue signaler, just like in the way that Ellen DeGeneres is, right? They want to be your gay virtue signaler to go to a digital currency, digital passport for the banks. That's who they work for. That's who they work for. And he has made the most outrageous comments as our Sam Bankman-Fried is going to be probably repositioned to New York for some show trials. Congressman Richie Torres says that Sam Bankman-Fried is a pathological liar. The disgraced founder misled the public when he claimed that FTX had enough assets to cover its liabilities, according to Torres, who is a clueless buffoon, age 34. Knows nothing. He probably doesn't even know who Don Valentine is, who created the founder of FTX, who came from the Bronx and Fordham University. I mean, this clown, Richie Torres, wasn't born, so what the heck would he know about Don Valentine? The disgraced founder misled the public when he claimed to have more assets necessary to cover its liabilities. The scathing comments come 2 days after the disgraced founder was arrested in the Bahamas. Congressman Richie Torres described Sam Bankman-Fried as a pathological liar after mishandling billions of dollars of customer funds. I wonder what he calls Jane Fraser over at Citigroup. Is she mismanaging billions of dollars? What about Jamie Dimon at Chase Manhattan Bank? Is he mismanaging? Is he running a house of cards? You bet they are. You bet the banks are running a house card. There's no adult supervision of Jamie Dimon. There's no adult supervision of Jane Fraser, who's from Scotland. Why do I need to bring in a Scotland British intelligence officer to run a New York bank? But that's what they do. There is evidence to suggest this much, says Torres. He lied because at no point after the collapse, or even before, did FTX have sufficient liquidity to redeem the customer. Why don't you ask Doug Leone, you moron? Doug Leone is the adult supervision of Sam Bankman-Fried. So if you don't like what comes out of Sam Bankman's pie hole, guess what? I don't like what comes out of your openly gay mouth. Okay? You're lying. You're full of it. You are full of mendacity. You come from the Bronx. The Bronx brought us Jerome Kohlberg. They brought us Don Valentine. They brought us Apple Computer, Cisco Systems, Google, YouTube, Zoom, LSI Logic, Sun Microsystems, Oracle. This is the tools that the military uses to collect data through the internet onto databases where your privacy goes bye-bye. And I don't need an advocate for a cashless New York to lecture me on a Stanford University campus raised Sam Bankman-Fried, who went to MIT, where Noam Chomsky went, where Doug Leone got an MBA from MIT, from the Sloan Business School. That's right, I said Doug Leone, who came from the Bronx, from Mount Vernon. He went to Cornell University, CIA Columbia University, and he went to MIT CIA to a business degree from Sloan University. That's 3 spook schools. And then he goes to work for Don Valentine at 2800 Sand Hill Road in 1988, which was right when the show began for Cisco Systems. Cisco Systems was founded by Don Valentine, funded by Don Valentine in 1984. And if you want to know what happened to FTX, you should review the history of Cisco Systems, because you're talking about Leonard Bossick, who had a PhD in computer science at Stanford University, or was attending Stanford University. He may not have graduated. And his girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, Sandy Lerner, who was department head of the computer science lab of computers for Stanford University. And that's how they got permission to build networks between the business school and the computer science school and the library by running the PCV pipes throughout the campus of Stanford on those beautiful, pristine lawns. There they are digging up the dirt to install Cisco routing wiring. And you should know that Don Valentine took them public. Don Valentine, who was the mentor to Doug Leone. And Doug Leone was right there in 1988 when Cisco Systems hit the big time. And that was when Leonard Bossick and Sandy Lerner owned 40% of Cisco Systems. Okay? And they were the senior people at Cisco. They were the founders of Cisco Systems. But Don Valentine picks the board of directors, and Don Valentine brought in his own CEO. So if you're uncomfortable with Sam Bankman-Fried being the CEO of FTX, or you're uncomfortable about Caroline Ellison being the CEO of Alameda Research, you can blame that 100% on Don Valentine and Doug Leone from the Bronx, because they would have picked those two knuckleheads. Personally, they picked the board of directors. They pick a spy who goes to work every day to make sure that those people are surveilled 24/7. That's what they do. And if you don't believe me, you could try to track down, Leonard Bossick. I think he's still bitter because he and his ex-wife, they got divorced after this debacle, Sandy Lerner, they cashed out and got $170 million back in 1990. And Doug Leone was there to witness this. And Don Valentine was alive, and he was there. Today, Cisco Systems has a market valuation of about $200 billion. That means that Sandy Lerner and Leonard Bossick would be worth $80 billion today instead of $85 million apiece. Don't you think that $80 billion is a bigger number than $170 million? That's approximately 85 1,000ths of the potential value. In other words, they got 8/10 of 8 100ths of 1%. That's 0.00085 of what their true value was. In other words, they got fleeced by Doug Leone, and Don Valentine fleeced them for 99.9925% of their money was stolen. So don't cry over your cryptocurrency, because I think Sandy Lerner and Leonard Bossick got fleeced for almost $80 billion. Okay? Anyway, that's my point today. The media is running stories that Sam Bankman went to a fancy school. Yeah, the same school that Patricia Hearst went to in Hillsborough. It's called the Crystal Springs Upland School, and it's a beautiful campus, and I've been there. And you should know that Paul Pelosi crashed his sports car a couple of miles from that location at Highway 35 and 92 on Skyline Boulevard. It's about 2 miles from the Sam Bankman-Patricia Hearst School, and that is where Paul Pelosi ended up killing his older brother, David Pelosi, who was 19 years old at the time. That's why we don't hear about David Pelosi, because he got killed in a car crash. So what can you say about that other than, oh, well, right? So you should know that Patricia Hearst also went to Monterey to attend the Santa Catalina Academy. That's where Dakota Johnson went to school. That's where Dr. Victor Ota's two daughters, Lark and Tara, went to school. That's where Abigail Folger, who was bayoneted 28 times by 3 of these, not just one, 3 of these military bayonets. 3 soldiers armed with M16 rifles and M7 bayonets. 3 soldiers. I said 3 soldiers murdered Abigail Folger, who attended the same school that Patty Hearst did, who attended the same school that Sam Bankman-Fried attended, who grew up on the campus of Stanford University, where Caroline Ellison graduated, where Elizabeth Holmes claims that she was raped as a freshman, where that buffoon, Big Bird, 5'11" Rachel Maddow claims that she was outed as a lesbian when she was a freshman attending Stanford University. So you got Stanford University associated with sexual assault. There's other sexual assaults I haven't mentioned, but we know about Elizabeth Holmes. That came out at the trial. Her fraud trial, that came out. The Stanford rape on campus. The Rachel Maddow came out in her fake biography book where she was outed as a gay lesbian, Big Bird, going on to be a social engineering buffoon with a small audience on cable television. And then we have Sam Bankman-Fried growing up on the campus, right? And we got little Caroline Ellison graduating in mathematics. Then you got Sam Bankman-Fried's two parents are law professors at the Stanford Law School, even though we function under Admiralty military law, and there is no reason to have a law school on a Stanford campus because there is no common law. It's might makes right. And if you don't believe me, pick up a weapon. Pick up a weapon. All right, so that's about the only way you're going to ever gain any freedom. You'll have as much freedom and liberty as you're willing to fight for. So if you're not willing to fight, you're going to be looking at techno enslavement, which is what Richie Torres wants for you. 34-year-old openly gay man from the Bronx, and he is going to bat to conceal the truth about FTX. You're never going to hear the name Doug Leone. You're never going to hear about Sequoia Capital, who sent over $213 million of love by 2019 to get that thing off the ground. And you know that they approved of the Sam Bankman-Fried's hairdo and wardrobe, just like Vogue magazine did for Susan Atkins and Linda Kasabian at the phony fake murder trial in 1970 in Los Angeles. That trial was sponsored by Joan Didion's former employer, Vogue magazine, and iMagnets of Beverly Hills, where, Mae Brussel came from, iMagnets. So she's a social engineer, and Dominic Dunn is the brother-in-law to Joan Didion, who's married to John Didion, who works for Time Life, which brought you the moon landing, which is a fake CIA photo shoot. Life magazine. The ones that own the Zapruder film but won't show it to you? Life magazine, the concealment, fast magic artist. Do you know that Charlie Manson's judge, George Charles Older, was stationed in Burma before Pearl Harbor, flying the P-40 Flying Tigers and shooting down and killing Japanese people before Pearl Harbor? And that's where the heroin is. The opium is in Burma. And that is where the district attorney of Los Angeles, Evelle Younger, was stationed after Pearl Harbor. Evelle Younger, the person who prosecuted Charlie Manson and Susan Atkins, was a CIA drug dealer. That's right. That's why he's district attorney of Los Angeles, because he makes sure that the CIA drug operations is not prosecuted. That would be the straight Satans. That would be the Satan slaves who distribute drugs in Los Angeles County. That's who Lino LaBianca worked with as a private banker. And the person who convicted Charlie Manson and Susan Atkins was a drug dealer for the CIA OSS. And so was the judge, Judge Charles Older. He operated out of an airfield in Burma and Bangkok, Thailand, where Tiger Woods' father worked in Black Ops. Tiger Woods, who learned to play golf at Los Alamitos, which is a CIA golf course, next to Long Beach, port facility, where Lino LaBianca worked, where Lino LaBianca raced horses at the Los Alamitos racetrack, a CIA horse racing track, where Timothy Leary spent time at the prison there, where Charlie Manson was, where the Rolling Stones road manager, Phil Kaufman, was the cellmate of Charlie Manson, in that zip code, where Tiger Woods grew up, where Sharon Tate's father was trained and had an office, in that zip code in San Pedro at Terminal Island. Sharon Tate's father, Tiger Woods' father, Tiger Woods, Charlie Manson, Phil Kaufman, Timothy Leary, Lino LaBianca, Jeffrey McDonald, who was wrongly convicted of murdering his family at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's 8 CIA people, all in the same zip code of Long Beach. And that's where George Deukmejian, who was one of the fake governors of California, he came out of there too. He came out of there after Ronald Reagan was done being the fake governor of California. We had George Deukmejian. All right, that's my point, people. If you want to know what happened to FTX, it was the CIA psych ops. They created it, they destroyed it, they brought it from cradle to grave, and then they're going to French fry Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm going to call him Fried, not Freed, because he's not going to be free, he's going to be fried. It's going to be Sam Bankman-Fried, just like Charlie Manson, not his real name, just like they did to little Susan Atkins. They took her 9-month-old baby boy away from her and put her into prison till she died of a brain tumor. It's a very sad story. Caroline Ellison actually looks like Susan Atkins, like a deer in the headlight. They should be afraid because they're going to be in a bad situation now. Shame on Richard Torres. Shame on Doug Leone, the cowardly banker. Do you know he's worth over $6 billion? He could personally reimburse all the people who lost money on FTX. Doug Leone never created Sequoia Capital, was an employee since 1988 until today, and he's accumulated over $6 billion, plus the hundreds of millions of dollars that he's collected in salary and spent. He'd have to make over $300 million a year for 34 years in a row to get anywhere close to $6 billion. Thanks for listening. Hit the like and subscribe. Have a great day.